Greetings, exiles, and welcome. My name is Jeezy, and today I have a question for you. Are you tired of the Trialmaster constantly berating you for every mistake you've ever made? Every time you thought, hey, Ultimatum sounds like a fun mechanic, let me give this a try, only to be one-shot on round 3, and then he won't shut up about it forever?
Your luck is over, fool. The 3-round challenger returns. This should be quick. You know the goal is to succeed. Yes. How embarrassing for you. Your luck tried to do better than 3 rounds this time. Your luck is...
Yeah, me neither. That's never happened to me. Anyway, are you tired of all of your friends making fun of you because they all have 20 quality on their jewelry and you don't? Well, fret not, my little friend. When I'm through with you, the Trialmaster will have nothing but mental anguish to share, and you'll have enough catalysts to make it rain. Now, before I get into the details of the strategy, I wanted to give you a brief overview. What kind of strategy is this, and what kind of results can you expect? I'm focusing on generating 3 primary catalysts: Prismatic, Fertile, and Tainted catalysts. The exchange rate for these 3 types of catalysts are the highest, and really the only notable ones that we care about finding. Over my 30 maps, I generated 124 Prismatic, 115 Fertile, and 317 Tainted catalysts, totaling a value of around 40 divines. It cost me a little over 13 divines in order to set up these 30 maps, leaving me with a total profit of just over 28 divines, an average profit per map of 0.94, and a return on investment percent of 214. I also generated just under 3,000 of all of the other catalysts combined. Now, I wasn't even going to bother including the result of 3-to-1ing all of these catalysts, as I thought it would be too much of a pain, but I got really curious and I went and did it anyway. One particularly annoying thing about doing this, however, is that since those little boxes you get for 3-to-1ing catalysts count as taking up one whole space in your inventory, even if they only contain one catalyst, you can really only trade about a fifth of your inventory with a vendor at once. And you'll have to do that over and over again, as you keep receiving ever decreasing amounts of catalysts, but they still are likely ones that you don't want to keep. It's really hard to say that I recommend doing this, but those extra catalysts are just going to sit in your inventory being worthless otherwise, unless you want to bulk sell them. So instead of recommending or not recommending, I will just say, do what you want, here's the data. I will definitely be 3-to-1ing my catalysts, even though it kinda sucks. So here are the updated results with almost 3,000 catalysts taken half an inventory at a time to Lily for the 3-to-1 vendor recipe. I'm actually very glad that I decided to 3-to-1 all of those catalysts, as even though it was a little bit boring and time consuming, it did give me about 50% more profit overall. But once again, the previous profit margins are perfectly fine if you'd like to save your wrists. Now that you know what the goals of this strategy are, and what kind of results it can achieve, how do we get there? Well, I'm using 4 different types of Scarabs. First, the Ultimatum Scarab of Catalysing, which causes all Ultimatum rewards given to you to be replaced with catalysts. This will oftentimes give you catalysts that you don't care about, but even finding a single stack of Prismatic or Fertile catalysts can pay for the entire map. Now of course sometimes that won't happen, and that's where the next Scarab comes in, the Ultimatum Scarab of Dueling. Unlike in previous leagues, where the Trialmaster was just pure chance, you can now force him to spawn on the final round using this Scarab. Once you best the Trialmaster, he'll drop you some Tainted catalysts. These are guaranteed, but there is a bit of variance in the number. With each of the maps that I was running being over 100 quant, scaled up to 160 or 170 with explicit map modifier effect on the Atlas passive tree, I found that the Trialmaster drops about 10 Tainted catalysts on average. On top of that, the Brave the Tower notable on the Atlas tree causes the Trialmaster to drop an extra full stack of a random catalyst. Now this can be total garbage, or he might actually drop you 10 Fertile or Prismatic catalysts. Even with just dropping Tainted catalysts and nothing else, it still fully covers the cost of all of my maps. Now in full interest of transparency, I will tell you the last 2 Scarabs that I used as well, even though I feel like they probably had little effect on my success. The third Scarab that I did use was the Ultimatum Scarab of Bribing, which causes Ultimatum monsters to give you extra XP. That's fantastic if you're regularly doing ultimatums without dying, but the second line states that Ultimatum encounters grant rewards as though you completed 2 additional rounds. There is a common misconception regarding this scarab that second stat line will cause you to receive extra rewards, i.e. completing 10 rounds will give you 12 rounds worth of rewards. But from my testing and from what the wiki states, that doesn't seem to be how this one works. Per the PoE wiki, certain rewards can only appear on certain waves, or after a certain wave has already passed. When not using the Scarab of Catalysing, catalysts will always appear on wave 4 and wave 8, as well as inscribed ultimatums and valuable currencies can normally only appear on wave 8 and above. What the "as though you completed 2 additional rounds" line actually means is that now all of those valuable currencies will start appearing on wave 6 and up instead, which gives you extra rounds at the end of the ultimatum to potentially roll something good. Since I was unable to find any good information on the wiki or elsewhere about whether this stat would cause more valuable catalysts to begin appearing sooner, I just opted to toss it in. It's very cheap, and the only other thing I could think to put in would be a sacrifice fragment. If you really want to, you can just swap it out for that for an extra guaranteed quant bonus, but it's rather small and insignificant, and I didn't die once over the course of my ultimatums, so that experience bonus actually did help me level up. And lastly, I'm once again using the Cartography Scarab of Corruption, just because I love this little thing. It definitely helps sustain maps, and makes map rolling a lot less of a pain. A few things to note in relation to this Scarab. I actually only dropped 26 maps over the course of my 30, so I didn't even sustain. Even if all of those dropped perfectly runnable, I wouldn't have been able to say I sustained my map drops. Additionally, as I was collecting my data, I was running Eldritch Altars because I was under the false assumption that the quantity bonus from picking up Eldritch Altars would actually affect the amount of catalysts you receive from ultimatum rewards, which is incorrect. Only map quant seems to matter, with Eldritch Altar quant affecting everything else that you would normally find in the map, but not catalysts, and not even the ones that drop from the Trialmaster, even though those drop like normal items do. One good thing to come out of this realization is that you don't need to run exclusively Jungle Valley maps in order to min-max your Eldritch Altars. You can actually run whatever map or maps you desire. If I were to do this strategy again, I would probably still try and fit the Scarab of Corruption in, but just favored a few different open maps, which give me a good layout for ultimatum, and then I would have a little bit more map variety, as well as a higher chance of actually sustaining runnable maps. And it's a good idea to have a build that's specifically created with ultimatum in mind. Tankiness should be your #1 priority. Being able to do damage while moving is great. I found a very good deal of success with this Arakali's Fang build. It's the character that I use to farm all of my ultimatums with no deaths. The removal of Eldritch Altar mods would make doing this strategy again even easier than when I did my set of 30. I'll be linking the path of building down in the description below, but please do be aware that the build does have some jank, and you might want to look up a guide for it, just to make sure that it fits your playstyle before you sink the money into it. I did want to note that the footage you're viewing in the background right now is of my 50 Divine version of this character. You can easily cut that in half by dropping Aminamu's Gaze, which is literally half of the total build cost. It is a 30% damage increase if you have enough Ghastly Eyes socketed, but an alternative method for scaling the build early is to grab an Adorned. It's about 1 Divine to get 1 over 100%, and I was able to roll 3 out of my 4 magic corrupted Ghastly Eyes myself for under 1,000 alterations, and the damage is comparable, so it can act as a significantly cheaper way to get about the same amount of damage. If you want to see how this build performs against the rest of the Ultimatum and the Trialmaster, stick around. Otherwise, you can just skip ahead to the next chapter.
Finish me! Ultimatum! Ultimatum! Temptation for the fool! Chaos, aid me! Is fight over? And my service continues. Chaos laughs, mortal, and fortune is yours.
I'm going to be doing something a little bit different when presenting the Atlas passive tree this time. This one is not the same one that you're going to find in the description under the video. This one has a little bit of extra stuff, as it's for my own personal use. The one under the video will have only the nodes required for the strategy, as this one does leave quite a few points left over for personal preference. I've personally decided to toss them back into Map Sustain and Necropolis, as the additional increased chance to have meta modifier crafting outcomes does very frequently drop corpses worth multiple divines. If you really just don't care about Necropolis at all, or you want to make the ultimatums a little bit easier, there are enough points then left over in order to pick up Pact with Energy and guarantee Nico spawns on your map. Alternatively, you can go for Shrines, but those may fall off before the end of the ultimatum, and if it takes having the Shrines in order to get through the earlier ultimatum waves, you're definitely going to struggle later once they fall away. As far as the nodes regarding ultimatum goes, let me go over those real quick. We very easily get a 100% chance for our maps to contain an ultimatum encounter, so we don't need to force that. Stand your ground is entirely optional, and it's up to you whether you have some kind of insider information. This is a source of that same mod from earlier with the Ultimatum Scarab of Bribing, stating grants rewards as though you completed an additional round. I don't believe that this mod does affect the rate that you see more valuable catalysts, but on the off chance that it does, the 3% reduced radius really isn't that difficult to deal with. Moving over to Prove Yourself Worthy, it states ultimatum modifiers start a tier higher if possible. What that means is when you're picking the downsides in between ultimatum rounds, they will start at tier 2 and make their way up to their maximum tier much faster, meaning that now grabbing just one tier of a downside is going to be a lot more punishing. But it causes ultimatum rewards to have a chance to be duplicated, which is fantastic if you get a stack of 10 fertile or prismatic catalysts, which then roll that duplication chance. So long as you've taken some time to prep for ultimatum specifically, most of the time you'll be able to deal with the mods the Trialmaster has to throw at you. It was only once in a blue moon where I saw 3 mods offered next to each other, where I thought all of these are terrible for me. Moving down here to Ruinous Wager, this is very important if you are good at dodging and less tanky. You can definitely drop this if your build is significantly more tanky than the one that I was running, but even with this node I was still getting chunked for half my life, and some of the dots in there are really nasty. It can definitely take some getting used to, figuring out which monsters have which abilities and which ones apply Ruin. They do glow blue in the same way that the Ruin Spectre does, so they are easy to pick out of the crowd, even when there's a lot going on. Now as for the notables over here, each one chooses a specific ultimatum type, either protect, kill, survive, or stand in stone circles, to spawn more frequently, as well as make easier. If you don't have a preference, you can just allocate them all, then every single ultimatum you get will be easier. What I recommend doing is starting out with all of them allocated until you get a feel for which ones you like, as well as picking up all of these smaller nodes leading to them, as these will make each of them easier as well. If you would care for a little bit of insight about ultimatum types from someone who's been doing ultimatum a lot the past week, I would actually recommend unallocating Slaughter Them All. This is the one associated with the defeat waves of enemies type, and there's one reason for this. If the automaton enemy type spawns in conjunction with this ultimatum, it can take a very long time to complete. Very few enemies actually spawn overall, and the ones that do don't even want to fight you. They'll just skitter around, teleport away, and oftentimes will run outside of the ultimatum arena. And even the ones that don't run away from you are incredibly tanky. Most of the time, you'll need to chase down 1 or 2 stray enemies in order to get the rest of the wave to spawn. I've not run into a similar issue with the automatons in any one of the other 3 ultimatum types. Survive is by far the easiest and fastest because it always takes the same amount of time. Stone circles are essentially just survive as well. Just be careful that you don't stand so still that you start getting ruin stacks on you. And protect the altar is like slay waves of enemies, but much better because you actually know where they're going to be, and if they run away, they can't attack the altar. This entire cluster up here is just for the notable that causes the boss to drop a full stack of a random catalyst. Like I said before, I have occasionally gotten lucky and he's dropped me something good. The rest of the tree is just focused on picking up as much quant as possible. I'm pathing through this harvest plant chance just to get to the quant in the middle, as well as explicit map modifier effect. Since I'm doing my best to run 8 mod maps, I did pick up the mounting modifiers node to give increased effect of explicit modifiers per explicit modifier. If you do, however, feel that your maps are a little too deadly, you can pick up Chiseled Perfection here and be a little bit more selective about the way that you roll your maps. Before I get into presenting the raw data in the spreadsheet like normal, I did want to give everybody a heads up about the guide archive that I'm setting up, just in case you missed it on my 200 sub special. Thank you very much, by the way. So you can think of this as a repository of every guide that I've ever made. All of my harvest guides are here, with hyperlinks to the YouTube video, a quick little breakdown of total cost, total profit, return on investment, as well as a link to the spreadsheet and Atlas passive tree, as well as a quick little breakdown of what scarabs you're going to need for each of these strategies, with links to the Path of Exile wiki. Any new video that I post will be listed at the top of the sheet here, and instead of putting the spreadsheet link and Atlas tree link under every single video, it's just going to be this guide archive link from now on, but you'll be immediately able to see all of the relevant information as soon as a video is uploaded. As I mentioned before, Google Sheets does not have a dark mode option, despite it having existed for far too long for that to be the case. The dark mode reader that I use is just called Dark Reader. Looks like this. I would definitely recommend it. You can enable automation so that it turns itself on, and most of the time when I end up on a site, I don't even notice that it's supposed to be in light mode because it's already in dark mode. Or you can manually configure a specific website to be viewed in either light or dark mode, and it's pretty good about remembering your settings. I'm not going to spend an incredibly long amount of time here, as I assume most of you already know how this is laid out, but just in case you're here for the first time, welcome, and this is how I collect my data. On the left-hand side, I have costs for all of the scarabs that I used over the course of my 30 maps. In the middle here, I have a tracker for all of the loot that I acquired after every map. And on the right-hand side, I have all of my profit. Number of catalysts farmed in this case, of each type, with an exchange rate, and the total amount of divines that I earned per. Down at the bottom, I have total expenses, number of maps run, average cost per map. On the right-hand side, I have total profit, return on investment percentage, and average profit per map. This one sheet is going to be a little bit special. Please forgive the lack of formatting in this one. I just needed an easy place to put my 3-to-1 vendor data. In case you would like to access this spreadsheet for yourself for any reason, whether you'd like to deep dive into the data a little bit more, or whether you'd like it for personal use, I will be including it in the description under the video as part of the guide archive. If you are interested in the spreadsheet for your personal use, please note that I have it mostly automated. The only thing you really do have to do is fill out the scarab cost on the left-hand side here in the yellow, and the same thing on the right-hand side for the exchange rate of whatever you're farming. And then all you need to do is begin filling out your loot, and it will begin propagating to the left and right-hand side. Each set of 10 maps will update independently of one another. However, the total expenses and total profit trackers down at the bottom will update based on their entire respective columns. Thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, consider subscribing, leave a comment telling me what you thought. I'll have all of the relevant information, as always, listed down in the description, mostly within the guide archive this time. Additionally, if the content that I am making is contributing positively to your day, and you would like to help me continue making it, please consider supporting my Patreon. That link will be down in the description below as well. And just in case anybody didn't see the 200 sub special, where I introduced Biscuit here, I was going to just include a picture, but he wandered in right as I was recording, so I guess he gets to be in the video today too. As always, I'll be working on another Path of Exile video to come out in the next week, and in case you'd like to check in sooner, come on over to my Twitch, ds_Jeezy. I'll be hanging out there playing the Aracali Spider build that you've seen in this video, possibly getting it to 100. It's quite a fun build, and I'm enjoying ultimatums, so I'll probably be doing more of that too. But regardless of how you choose to spend the rest of your day, I hope it's a good one. I'm Jeezy, and I'll see you in the next one.